Hello and welcome to Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. We are your hosts, Vidas Pinkevičius
and Aušra Pinkevičienė.
We've been mastering secrets of organ playing for more than 20 years and sharing them on this blog since 2011.
On this show, which we create from our home in Vilnius, Lithuania, we strive to help you grow in every area of organ playing, including practice, technique, repertoire, sight reading, hymn playing, improvisation, composition, music theory, harmony, and many others.
Our hope is to help you become a complete musician, or what we call as total organist, a program which we have created to help you reach your dreams faster than you would do on your own.
If you are new here, we invite you to subscribe to receive free updates of this blog at organduo.lt. By subscribing, you will also receive free video how to master any organ composition and 10-day organ playing mini course.
And now let's go to the podcast for today. I'm here in my church in Vilnius University, St. John's Church, talking via internet to Daniel Moult, who is a wonderful concert organist from London, UK, and he is also a recording artist and film presenter. Daniel is also the head of organ studies at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire and a trustee of an examiner for the Royal College of Organists. One of the leading organists of his generation, he has pioneered the use of film to promote the music of the organ. He has made many recordings and broadcasts and performs around the world, both as a soloist and ensemble player. Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining this conversation, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vidas. It's a pleasure to be with you all.
I first came into contact with you through Fuchs Tape Films. I watched the videos that they released, and I know the box DVD sets. They're doing wonderful work in promoting pipe organ world around the globe, and you took part in a few projects with them. And I watched the Elusive English Organ. That was wonderful.
Thank you very much. Yes, that was the first film I did with them about, 10 years ago, I think. I've done two more since. The most recent one is called The English Organ, and it's a major box set that we're just releasing at the moment, which is very exciting. We recorded on about 30 organs all across England, Australia, New Zealand. So I think it's the biggest production that Fuchs Tape have done. So we had to crowdfund and raise a lot of money for it, but it's wonderful that we've been able to do it.
Exactly. You know, with the internet today, the technology allows us to connect with whoever we want, right? And look, we are talking now through the thousands of miles apart, and we are connected in real time. And
Yes.
This information can be about anything, about the pipe organ world, which is very, very exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you, because people in England, I think, say, oh, you know, it is worrying that the pipe organ has fewer followers. I think this is an international feeling that the pipe organ perhaps does not have as many followers. But I agree with you, Vidas. We have, through the internet, a phenomenal opportunity that our ancestors did not have, that we can be one big family as organists across the globe. And I still think that, with the exception of you and a couple of other people, we are not exploiting that. And I think that's a really exciting potential for the future to exploit.
Thank you for noticing me and my work.
Absolutely.
I feel a little bit lonely here, sitting on the organ bench and live streaming.
I think as organists, it's our job to feel lonely. Yes.
Yeah, live streaming whenever I can. But really, let's go back to the beginning. From your probably childhood days, when you were first introduced to the pipe organ. Do you remember the time when you first fell in love with it? Can you share with us the story?
Yeah, I can indeed. And I'm sure it's the same for many viewers. But for me, it was when my mother took me to church as a young boy. and I heard the sound of the organ in the church. I later discovered it wasn't the best instrument, but at the time, age 6 or 7, I was absolutely thrilled by the sound of it. And then when I went up to watch the organist play at the end, I fell in love with the instrument. And for me, the worrying thing is that fewer people go to church, but most organs are still in churches. And I think one of the challenges we have as a community of organists is finding a way of introducing the organ to new people so they could be thrilled, not just like me, but like everybody who has probably found the organ in a sacred building in this era when religion is perhaps not as prominent.
Daniel, do you think organists around the world have a responsibility a little bit to demonstrate the organ to the young audiences, right? To kids, to students, or is it only for elite presenters like yourself?
I'd hate to think of myself as elite, but no, I agree with you. I think all of us as musicians have a responsibility to continue our art. Now, some people like to teach, and that's wonderful. Some people don't like to teach, but I think in somehow communicating with people the wonder of our instrument, presenting it to young people, I think is so important. And again, maybe not every musician is the right person to do that. We're all very different. But I think it's critically important that some of us do it, that people, you know, like yourself and people who communicate well can present the organ to not just young people, but to people of all ages, because that's what is going to break down barriers, because it will not present itself. we have to be the agents somehow. Yeah.
You know, Daniel, I've been thinking that sometimes people are shy, right, in front of camera, and some people
Yes.
are better left behind the camera, right? Like
Yes.
they might be like a personality type where they could stay away of maybe audiences, right, or TV appearances. They like to be not seen, right? They like to hide a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's nothing
Yes,
to
I
worry
understand
about,
that.
right?
Yeah, I absolutely understand that, and I think that, yeah, for some people, presenting the organ to young people or to a general audience is their idea of hell, and I respect that. But I think we are a large enough community that at least some of us enjoy presenting the organ to the young people, and I think that's really important. They have to keep on happening. Yes.
Yes, you know, there are so many ways of demonstrating the organ and showing your work, not only being in front of the camera like we do sometimes, but
Yeah.
for example, people sometimes can record just the audio and put a picture of the organ if they don't want to be seen themselves, right? And
Yeah.
that's absolutely fine.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think for me, the important thing is that the organ gets heard. And as you say, there are different ways of making it heard. But, you know, particularly in England, I do not know the situation in Lithuania and Eastern Europe so much, but certainly in the United Kingdom, far fewer people are going to church. So they are not seeing the organ in that context. So we have to find new ways of bringing the organ to them. And if people want to be anonymous, then maybe, you know, that is perhaps also possible.
Well, exactly. It's possible, you know, to combine various mediums like text, pictures, audio, video, whatever
Yeah.
whatever you can choose, whatever you feel comfortable with. And some people don't like to record, right? They better present in physical form, meeting with real people, right? And that's okay, right?
Yeah, exactly. There are many different temperaments, many different people. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
But probably
with that.
it's good to take responsibility and show your work, probably, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's good. And my impression is that, generally speaking, the younger generation, they feel the urgency of having to promote the organ, because I think certainly in our lifetimes, the organ has perhaps become less significant in some areas of the world. So I think, you know, younger players, I sense, and my students as well, my undergraduates, I think they sense the importance of having to be ambassadors somehow. And as you say, there are many different ways of being an ambassador. Not everybody has to be there in person and dancing and waving, because not everybody wants to do that. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and changing the dress twice during the performance.
Yeah, exactly. It is not everybody's thing. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you know whom I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you're talking about. And I think this is one of the challenges, I think, that is keeping the integrity of our music. You know, the music that we love, the organ art that we love, which is a superb art, and an art that talks of many profound things, but at the same time making the presentation accessible. And I think that the danger is that we should not allow the music to become degraded or cheap, because that is what the instrument is about. It's about beautiful art music.
Daniel, do you remember the time when you first demonstrated the organ, first appeared in public like this? It surely wasn't in the time with Fugue State Films. It was well before, probably, right?
That's right. Yeah, I remember when I first became freelance. I worked in a cathedral for a long time, and I became freelance, and I did some work with school children. And I remember before my first demonstration, I was so nervous. I thought, what am I doing? The children are going to eat me alive. But actually, it went really well, because I think if you are yourself, and if you are passionate about the instrument, the children appreciate that, they understand that, and they will listen. And children are fascinated by live music, because children nowadays, they have so little live music in their lives. All the music they have is pre-recorded, is in the background of a supermarket or shop. But to actually be there and just to listen to an instrument and to live music is something which captivates children, I think. So I did not feel that I had to be some sort of crazy entertainer. I felt that the children were captivated by the music, which is how it should be.
We've been talking about the importance of being proactive with our work, right?
Yeah.
With the audience, younger generation, and senior people, and people of all ages, basically, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
do you remember the first time when you appeared in public like this, when you demonstrated the organ, or when you were like an ambassador? It surely was before the Fugue State Films, right?
Yes, it's a few years before then. And I remember it very well, Vidas, because I was very nervous. And I thought the children, they are going to eat me alive. But then when I started, the children were really well behaved and very interested. And I now realize that children in our society have very few opportunities to hear live music. They hear music, but all the time it is in the background of the supermarkets, in the shops, at home. So actually watching a musician play their instrument, making music live, is a thrill for children. And I think that us as musicians, maybe we forget that because we do it every day. But I think for children, it is something very, very special. And I think when children meet the organ, and many colleagues say the same thing to me as well, when children meet the organ, they are nearly always amazed and in awe of the beauty of the instruments and the music.
Well, exactly. There is so much to see, so much to discover with the organ.
Absolutely.
And children are discovering the world around them. And it's the right and perfect, probably, opportunity for us to step in and show our magnificent and hidden and secret, probably, world behind the organ and pipes and mechanics and the history, right? Sometimes it's history in a boring term, but sometimes you can present it quite lively and maybe use technology to catch their attention. If you want, right? You can do all kinds of things. So I'm glad you were doing that before. And what you say, you were a little bit terrified, right, of children? Why was that?
I think it was just because it was a new experience for me when I first did it. Also, when I first did it, it was not very common in England. There were only a few of us who would do this. Now it is a very common thing. But when I started doing this, even just 15 years ago, 16 years ago, it was not so common. So there was a feeling of, how will this be? But I think now it has become very common, and I think that is a very good thing. And I think we need more of it. I do not think we can have too much. That's my feeling.
No, it's just the beginning, right? Of
I
that
agree. Yeah.
movement of sharing our work. Just think that really organists are individualists for the
Yeah.
most part, and they tend to be hidden behind the organ desk and the organ bench, and the public and general audiences don't see what's going on. They don't have the idea how interesting it is, right?
Yeah.
What they're doing.
I agree. Yes.
And you're showing basically the insights of the instrument, of various instruments, right? Have you
Yeah.
counted how many instruments have you demonstrated to this day?
I've not demonstrated a huge number, partially because when I started doing this, I was working part-time in Manchester at the big concert hall. So I would have, hundreds and hundreds of groups of children who would come once a week or every so often to watch the organ. So we had thousands of children in Manchester, but I have tended to do it at bigger venues with larger numbers of children, whereas I know some colleagues do it with smaller numbers of children in more venues. I think there are many different ways of doing it. So, yeah.
Well, yes, every organ is unique and worth of probably different approach, different demonstration type.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yes.
in your demonstrations, do you allow audiences to come up and touch the organ?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I tell them after an introduction, I'm going to play some music, I'm going to talk about it, I show things with the camera, and I say at the end, you can come up and have a go. And most of them are uncertain, but there are always some who want to. And I think it's, as you said at the beginning, it is about breaking down barriers between you and your audience and you and the children, and that is so important.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the English organ for the Fugue State films, you called this project Elusive, right? Why is that? Could you share?
Right, that was my very first one about 10 years ago now. It's partially because the organ in England, unlike elsewhere in Europe and America and so on, there are large parts of history that we do not know about, that we have no instruments which survive. So in England, the oldest surviving organ we have is only from about 1680. Well, in the rest of Europe, that is not so old. And we were looking at the reasons for this, because unfortunately in England we had many disruptions, we had organs destroyed, we had many religious upheavals throughout the centuries, which had far more impact on the organs than it did in the rest of Europe. So that is why we called it elusive. It was hard to find the truth about some of the English organ before the 19th century, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before the 19th century, organs in England were quite different from that of today, right? Quite different from capabilities. I mean,
Yes.
remember the story how Mendelssohn traveled in England and was kind of complaining that you cannot really play Johann Sebastian Bach's music because of the pedal compass probably and other things. Right?
That's right. That's right. And when he did find English organs he could play, he moaned because he thought the pedal keys were too narrow. So I think Mendelssohn had some frustrating times in England. You're right. But he was very important for English organ culture, because I think after his visits, that's what inspired the English to get into Bach and start building organs more like the rest of mainland Europe. I think being an island, the danger is that we have always been rather conservative and slightly, dare I say, backwards. And we sometimes do things in a slightly odd way. And I think you see this nowadays with our politics too, unfortunately.
If you had to choose, let's say, 5 instruments from England on one hand, right, to count, and and share with us today. Could you? It's very difficult, right, to choose five instruments, the most important ones. Maybe you could. Maybe you have done that already. What are your five choices?
I will give it a go. Firstly, we have an organ, the earliest surviving organ in a country house, Adlington Hall, in the north of England. Very important organ. Then we have an organ which Handel knew, a wonderful organ for Handel in London at Christchurch, Spitalfields, which is probably the best Baroque organ which survives. Then we have in the Romantic era, Truro Cathedral. So Henry Willis, who built organs all around England, Truro Cathedral, probably his best one. So that takes us to 3. And then 4 and 5, I guess we ought to have a famous organ. I mean, perhaps the Royal Albert Hall in London. I do not think it is the best Willis organ, but it is probably the most famous, and it has become a very iconic organ. And then finally, the Royal Festival Hall, another big hall in London, which has a neoclassical organ, which I do not think is so beautiful, but I think was a very important organ because it started the organ reform movement after the war in England. So I think those are the 5 most important for me.
Well, yeah, and this list is quite limited enough for one organ tour, right? For one trip.
Exactly. Someone can come across, they do an organ tour. Yes, hire a coach. Yeah.
People who have not tried out to travel to England and to find out about their organs, maybe can take advantage and explore those 5 instruments for starters, and not to get lost in the other wealth of instruments and thousands of other important organs.
Exactly. I think that is lovely. Yeah.
So Daniel, of course, that's not the only project that you did with the Fuchs films, right? I remember is 2 others, right? Could you share what was the second one?
Sure. The second one was about 10 years ago, again, 9 years ago, called the Virtuoso Organist. And that was just big concert repertoire filmed close up, as if somebody was sat watching you by the side. So things like, Messiaen, Transport de Joie, Franz Schmidt, Toccata, Dupré, Preludes and Fugues, all the big virtuosic repertoire that we professional organists play, but filmed at close quarters and with different camera angles, so that somebody could watch it at home and watch as if they were watching a pianist in the front row. And I think that's an important concert experience because, as you said before, Vidas, we are often hiding behind curtains. And when somebody can watch what we do close up, it is an exciting part of the concert experience for them. And I think something which, in the future of the organ, we need to think about more and more.
Well, you're right, Daniel. Do you remember the process that they were filming? How many cameras were they using?
I can't remember that shoot. I mean, the latest shoot we've normally used about 4 cameras, which gives you quite a bit of variety. So you have one wide, you have one on the pedals, one on the hands, one GoPro, like an overhead one, and then one wide shot. And I think that's what we did for the latest box set, the English organ. Obviously, a very, very big production can hire in more cameras, but classical music DVDs, there is a budget. So sometimes you have to redo a shoot and put the cameras in a different position. So it is quite time consuming. But I think with 3 or 4 cameras, you can get a very good shoot. And nowadays, technology is so much cheaper. I mean, when we did the first film 10 years ago, it was expensive. Whereas now, the technology we've used is so much cheaper, and the money can be used for other things, for venues, for production, for editing, for marketing, and the things that a film needs to be successful.
Well, exactly. Technology allows us to be mobile, to travel, to film things, even in our pocket today. I guess most of our listeners have a full-blown video studio, right? Or at least audio studio.
Yeah. Somebody told me the other day that our smartphone that we have is about 25 times more powerful than the 1980s computer. I find that amazing.
Yes,
Incredible. Yeah,
it's incredible where we will go next, right? In
I
5 years,
know.
for example.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So your third project with Fugue State Films was something different, right? Can you share with us?
That's right. Thank you. We have just released this. It's called the English Organ. So just the English Organ.
Uh-huh.
No mention of Elusive. And this is a large box set, very large box set, which goes from the 16th century to the present day. And we filmed on about 33 organs, I think it was, and 3 documentaries, lots of music, lots of film, and we've just released it. And it took us a long time to plan. It took us about a year to record and film, but we are very pleased with it, and we hope that people enjoy it.
You know, I think Fugue State Films already made a big name for themselves right from the beginning, from their first DVDs. I don't remember which was the first, but I watched and had the DVDs with them about the art of fugue that George did,
Yeah.
César Franck, Charles-Marie
Yeah.
Widor,
That's right.
Cavaillé, of course, right?
Yes.
All those things. And while I was watching them, I thought it's amazing that they could produce something of such a high quality, like a theater production, and about pipe organs. And I thought our attention and reach is limited, right? There are just not too many organists around the world, but apparently with the subscription model and other support donations buttons that they have on their website, I think this is really a great opportunity for them to raise funds, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
With
Yeah.
the
And I
audience.
think I absolutely agree. And I think this can only happen in our age, because I think now in our age, the pipe organ community, which is perhaps small in one individual country, you combine the whole world, and suddenly you have a good platform and people who will buy products, who will help to crowdfund. So I think this sort of the model that Fugue State Films have is one which can only work internationally. And I think even 20, 25 years ago, this sort of idea would not be possible. And I think the internet is exciting. Technology is exciting because all the organ community can be friends. And we are no longer as limited by borders. We are if we perform live, of course, but I think in many other things we can communicate, share ideas, share performances in a way that we could not even 20 years ago. And that is incredible.
Well, of course, such magnificent projects that you do are not always easy, right? Have you had any challenges along the way that you had to overcome?
Many challenges.
Some.
One of the challenges which I was not involved with, but is raising enough money, because you have to buy people's faith, that they have to think that if they invest, that you are going to come up with a good product. And that is not easy. Also, we had challenges. There were a couple of venues that we would really like to have filmed in, but it was not possible. So yeah, there were bumps in the road, as we say in England. But at the end, I think, like anything in music, if you keep faith and if you have a vision, you will still succeed. And sometimes you just have to remind yourself of that when the going gets tough.
But even while preparing for this project, like recording on 33 organs, like you did just recently, it's enormous project, enormous task to keep such a breadth of the repertoire, right? How many hours have you been practicing this?
It was made slightly easier because at most venues we would only record, say, 2-3 pieces. So it wasn't as if we were doing a whole CD at each venue, which I think would have been impossible. But it was still a lot of practice. The way I managed it myself was I was very, very organized. So about a year in advance, in concert, I would program new pieces. The church I play at, I would play as preludes, some of the music. So, you know, it is rather like a military campaign. You work out all the music you're going to record, so that by the time you get to recording, you have lived with the music and know it very well. For me, it is just about planning. And I think, like so much in music, if you are well organized, then it is okay.
When you're really well prepared, you probably don't have to spend so much time recording, right? You can have like 3 tries, or I don't know. How do you do it? What's your strategy?
Yeah. It's an interesting question, Vidas, because I know musicians have different strategies. My personal strategy is when I'm recording on DVD, I treat it as a live performance. So I play as if I'm playing live, and I do that twice. And then I choose what I think is the better of the 2 performances as the main track. And then I just go and record patches of mistakes or things that I think are not so good. Whereas on a CD, and we did include 2 CDs with this box set, on a CD, it is very different. It is, as you know yourself, you maybe do 1 performance as live, and then you do many, many, many patches. And it is a much more artificial process. Whereas I think on DVD, unless you have a Hollywood studio, it is too expensive and too difficult to treat the DVD filming like a CD. You have to do it more as live. Yes, you can do 1 or 2 patches for wrong notes and little mistakes, but it has to be as a live performance more, which I think myself I like, because for me, I love live performance more than recordings. And I love listening to musicians play live, because I think that is when there's a more direct communication with the audience. For me, that's my
I couldn't agree more, Daniel. When you play live and when you don't cut as often as in CDs, for example, it's much a different feeling, right? You connect with the audience, and it's a little bit unpredictable, right? You cannot plan for everything, but that's okay, right?
I think, but I think I agree. I absolutely. I think that because of CDs, people get frightened of mistakes. And I think when you communicate with an audience, you have to take that risk. And at the end of the day, I think of the performances that I have gone away from going, wow, I do not count the mistakes, but I am moved by what that musician is communicating with me. But I think maybe as musicians, all of us, professional and amateur, we get too worried about the mistakes when we play live. You have to abandon the fear.
Wonderful. It's such a pleasure to talk with you, Daniel, but I know our time is limited today. And for ending our conversation, could you share with us your plans for the future? What are you working on next?
That's very kind. Well, next, I have a lot of concert work in 2020, 21, which is wonderful. I obviously, because I head the organ department at Birmingham, that is half time. So that also keeps me busy. Beyond that, I would like to do another recording project, but I don't know yet. I want a year or so off recording and do other things, but I think about possibilities. I am also editing an anthology of English organ music as well for Byrd, which I hope will come out in a year or so. So that is another project. But like all of us as musicians, I keep an open mind, and opportunities come along, and maybe in another 6 months I'm doing something different. And that is the excitement of us being musicians. Yeah.
Wonderful. I wish you good luck with your creative projects in the new year, 2020, of course, and further in the future. And before we end our conversation, could you, Daniel, direct our listeners to your website or anywhere else that you want our listeners to go and become more familiar with your work and yourself?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vidas. I'm always delighted to meet organists, work with organists, talk with organists socially or professionally. My website is danielmoult.com. nice and easy to remember. And I am also on Facebook as well. If you look up Daniel Moult, London and Birmingham, that is me. I have many organist friends, and I like to keep people updated there of my activities. I'm not on Twitter yet, but maybe I join sometime. I'm always delighted to meet people. And I wish all your listeners, your viewers, every good wish and every success in their organ playing and their studies.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And when you record something new, you let me know, and we can chat again about your new project.
Vidas, it's a pleasure to talk to you. All the best.
This blog is supported by Total Organist, the most comprehensive organ training program online, where you will find courses for every area of organ playing, including technique, practice, sight reading, repertoire playing, hymn playing, improvisation, composition, music theory and harmony, with hundreds of scores and thousands of exercises. Here is what some of the students are saying.
Hugh writes, "The sight reading course has helped me tremendously. Thank you very much for your essays, courses and all your help."
Robert writes, "I found the fingerings, registration ideas and general comments to be excellent."
John writes, "I have found your download very helpful. It was really excellent. I have watched some of your teaching videos, and when I read your instructions, I tried to imagine you are there teaching me. You may feel disappointed that I am 2-3 days behind, but I am a slow learner, and I have committed to taking the time to get it right, as you say. But the other night my wife commented that she had never heard me play such a detailed melody in the left hand so well. My left hand is generally poor."
Robert writes, "It has been a great pleasure in my life of having discovered your courses and material, as well as the YouTube work of recordings. You have a calm and pleasant way of teaching."
Ron writes, "Hi Vidas and Ausra, thank you guys. What a wonderful response to my email note to you. You've got me right, and I feel you understand my level of playing. Yes, at home, and lucky that I have an organ for that reason. I am paying attention to this, and I am going to try this haha no longer secret model. Yes, and I love Cesar Frank too. What is very nice about your blog podcast is that Ausra and Vidas are like a Socratic dialogue, and by bouncing things off of each other, so much more information comes out and is expressed. Your comments contain a wealth of information and understanding. I really appreciate this. It is very inspiring and will keep us moving forward."
Would you like to receive the same or even better results that our students are getting? If so, join them at organduo.lt/total-organist. And of course, you will get the first month free too. You can cancel anytime.
Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to receive free updates of this blog, make sure you do that at organduo.lt. By subscribing, you will also receive free video, how to master any organ composition, and 10-day organ playing mini course.
This was Vidas
and Ausra from Secrets of Organ Playing.
And remember, when you practice,
miracles happen.